Hi, this is Leanna from Madison, Wisconsin, and you're listening to Two Broads Talking Politics. Find them on Twitter at Two Broads Talk. That's TWO Broads Talk.
Hi everyone, this is Kelly with Two Broads Talking Politics, and I am here today with Kelda Roys, who is running for governor of Wisconsin. Hi, Kelda.
Hi, Kelly.
Thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Could you, to start, just tell us a little bit about your background and why you're running for governor now?
Sure. Well, I'm a born and raised Wisconsinite. I'm a lawyer by training. I'm currently a small business owner and an entrepreneur, but I served 2 terms in the Wisconsin State Assembly, and I was also our Democratic Caucus chair in leadership. And I got my start in politics as the executive director of NARAL Pro-Choice Wisconsin, working on reproductive rights.
Excellent. And why have you chosen now as the moment to run for governor of Wisconsin?
Well, I think like so many people, I care deeply about the world that my children are going to grow up in. And I want Wisconsin to be a place of opportunity and fairness where everyone has the opportunity to succeed. And I feel like we have so much going for us that we could make Wisconsin a great place to raise a family, to grow a business, things I've had the opportunity to do. But we need to make sure that those are possible for everyone and for our future. And that means having a different governor. And I'm very excited that people seem to be responding to that positive, forward-looking message.
Yeah, you've been doing really well in some straw polls recently. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. My campaign has won every single straw poll in the last several months in this campaign. And the largest one was at the statewide Democratic Party convention, where I got twice as many votes as the other contenders in this race. It's a crowded 10-way primary, but the straw poll results and the enthusiasm that we are building, I think, is really helping us stand out from the crowd. In addition to the fact that I'm the candidate that actually has a track record of turning these big ideas into real results. I've passed state policy. I know what it takes to turn a big ship like the state of Wisconsin around, and I'm ready to do that again as our governor.
So I wanted to talk for a minute kind of about process. I know this is a relatively late primary. I'm in Illinois, so we had a super early primary.
Oh, yes. Yes, we're on the other end, August 14th. It's a very late primary, which is a challenge when you're going up against a well-funded person like Walker.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask a minute about that. How do you pivot from this super crowded primary to, if you win the primary, then having to sort of shift gears immediately to be running for a general election that's coming up pretty soon after that? What do you see as sort of the process for doing that?
Well, I think that our message is resonating with primary voters and general election voters because it really is, it's the same. It's about understanding how Wisconsin can be a place where everyone has the chance to succeed, and we're building strong families and strong communities. So I think the big difference between the primary and the general is going to be that I'm not going to have as much time to raise money to get our message out, and I'm not going to have as much time as I would like to be building that big statewide infrastructure that's going to be so important. And so we're working actually right now to raise money that's going to help us in the general election, to bring people on board. I think people are starting to realize that it's time to consolidate support around a candidate who gives us the strongest chance to win in November and is ready to be governor. We've built a statewide volunteer operation, which is great. We've got several dozen people all around Wisconsin who are Kelda captains and who are organizing in their communities. And we now also have a nationwide base of support thanks to my video that went really viral. And I think a lot of people all around the country care about the future of Wisconsin because they understand how important our state is for 2020. And they also have been dismayed to see what's happened over the last 8 years.
Yeah, so I think you started to answer my next question, which is I know when you were running for state assembly, you knocked on an enormous number of doors.
Yes.
Obviously, you can't knock on the door of every person in the state of Wisconsin, although maybe your team can try. So what's the process for sort of really getting your name out there? And, if you can't knock on every door, how do you make sure that everyone in Wisconsin hears your message?
We are raising money so that we can have yard signs and billboards, as well as, more traditional media like radio and television and Facebook ads and things like that, just to make sure that people can see what our plans are for Wisconsin. We also have a robust field organizing program that I mentioned earlier, because people are much more likely to vote for someone when a friend or a neighbor says, hey, I met Kelda Roys the other day. So that kind of personal outreach is always the most important way to motivate people to vote. But we also want to make sure that we have the resources to get that message out to people who aren't necessarily paying attention this early. And so, that's why raising money is important, especially when, like me, you're not taking money from the NRA, you're not taking money from the Koch brothers and other big money special interests.
What are some of the issues that you think are really important to Wisconsinites right now, and the kind of issues that are going to be driving who they decide to vote for?
I'm on the road all the time. Wherever I travel, even if I'm just stopping to fill up the gas tank in the car, I ask people what's important to them and what would you like to see from our next governor and what matters to you. And over, wherever I am in the state, I hear the same few things again and again. Public education. People want to make sure that their kids and their grandkids have good schools to go to. And that's something that's been a pride of Wisconsin for many, many years. But unfortunately, we've had a situation where we've been cutting our public education in recent years, and it's starting to take a toll. So that's one thing. I also hear a lot about healthcare. We have some of the highest health insurance premiums in the nation, in part because Republicans were trying so hard to undermine the Affordable Care Act that they were willing to undermine it so that we all pay higher premiums now. That and the cost of prescription drugs. These are issues I'm passionate about and have a long track record of working to expand access to health care. So we need to tackle that. Protecting clean air and clean water. Wisconsin has a great heritage as a conservation leader, and I think we've got some real opportunities to build a clean energy economy in Wisconsin. So I hear about that a lot. And then I also hear a lot about our roads, which used to be very well maintained, and now we're putting basic maintenance on the credit card and not taking care of our roads, and it's a huge cost and inconvenience to drivers who are breaking our cars on these terrible, poorly maintained roads.
I was just in Wisconsin last weekend and was noting that the roads always seem to be in a state of half construction.
Yes. Well, and when you put off needed maintenance and you're not willing to pay for it, then the problem just gets more and more expensive. We need a long-term plan for maintaining our infrastructure, because that's one of the most important things we can do to build a strong economy.
So I spend a lot of time on candidate websites, a lot of time. And one thing I noticed on your website is really detailed plans for how you would look at a lot of different issues. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how the level of detail in those plans kind of comes out a little bit of your time in the state assembly and getting laws passed there.
Yes, I think that's right. I mean, I think I have an appreciation for what it actually takes to create public policy. And, one of the things I'm really proud of is my track record of turning these big ideas into real results. I've been able to pass legislation when Democrats were in control and when Republicans were in control, when I was in the legislature and when I was not in the legislature. And I think we need a governor who understands how to create public policy and use state government to help make Wisconsin a better place for everyone to live. And I also think we frankly owe it to the voters to be really as clear and detailed about our policies as possible. This is something that's a big differentiator for me among the other good candidates in the primary. I think a lot of whom might have their heart in the right place, but this is a big, complicated job, and we need someone who can do it effectively on day one.
Right now, Wisconsin has large majority of Republicans in the state assembly and the state senate, although perhaps the tide is shifting. Just the other day, Caleb Frostman won, which was exciting.
Yeah, so their second special election victory.
Yeah, but assuming that it doesn't completely flip over in November, how do you see yourself reaching across the aisle and, helping get legislation through if there are still Republican majorities?
Well, yes, I think, we very well might be dealing with a split legislature. And I think it's important that we have a governor who knows how to work across the aisle. I certainly hold my values very strongly, but I understand that there are a lot of issues where I might be able to work with Republicans, talking about our transportation needs and infrastructure, making sure that we're making fiscally responsible decisions and not giving away billions of dollars to corporations with no accountability. I think there are a lot of Republicans in Wisconsin who might even be frustrated with the intransigence of our current governor on taking on these significant public policy challenges. And I'm really looking forward as governor to continuing my track record of working with people, regardless of ideology, on issues where we can make progress for people, because that's really what it's about. It's one thing to stand up and yell and have a debate. It's another thing to say, I'm going to work tirelessly to actually solve our common challenges, even though it's hard. And I think that's what people expect, and that's what Wisconsinites deserve from their leaders.
So you mentioned your video earlier, your campaign video that went viral, which I loved.
Thank you.
For any listeners, we'll put it on our website if people haven't seen it. But you talk about working on the BPA issue while you were in the state assembly, and you also put your family really front and center in that ad. You're breastfeeding your youngest in that video. Could you talk a little bit about, it's still somewhat unusual for women who are running for office to be so open about the fact that they are mothers, especially you're a mother of very young children still. Could you talk a little bit about your decision to keep that front and center in the campaign and what you think that brings to the campaign?
Sure. I'm really tired of women feeling like we always have to hide a part of ourselves to be taken seriously professionally. And I think, when we have a president who has treated women the way that he's admitted doing, I'm just not willing to put up with the double standards anymore. And I think that all across this country, whether it's the Women's March or the Me Too movement or Time's Up, women and men are saying, hey, we've got to get past this. It's time for women to have a seat at the table of leadership and power. And I think that there are candidates all across the country who are showing themselves as complete people and as authentic as their authentic selves. And that's what voters really want. And my family is an important part of who I am and what's important to me. And, and so I just thought a lot of people know me as, this advocate, an effective legislator, a lawyer, but not a lot of people know the part of me that's a mom and a stepmom and a wife and partner. And so I wanted to, I don't want to have to hide any particular part of myself. Because when I'm governor, I'm going to be bringing my whole self to work for the people of Wisconsin, and our whole family is invested in the future of the state.
I just yesterday had my kids in the office with me, so I, for one, completely agree, although I'm not sure my children helped me seem professional yesterday. But
Well, I think it's great for kids to get exposed to it. And, when I was little, when I was a young child, even before kindergarten, my dad was taking me to Democratic Party meetings and political things. And, and so I feel like I'm just continuing the family tradition. And I love it when people bring their kids to different events. I think we have to start being more supportive of families with young children and not sort of segregating our lives into things where kids are not welcome and making it harder on working parents.
Yeah, and I love the idea of lawmakers, legislators, and the executive branch who know what it's like to breastfeed. When my youngest was a baby, he outright refused to take bottles. So when I went back to work when he was 12 weeks old, my husband had to bring him to my office every day.
Oh, yeah. Well, whatever it takes.
Yeah. And so just the idea that there will be people in power who understand that struggle, I think can be really exciting for a lot of us.
Yeah. And it's been exciting for me to hear the response from people, not just women, but men too, saying, hey, thank you for showing that you can be a working parent and a great professional. And I think that, Generation X and millennial men, as well as women, want to see they want to be full parents. They want to be present for their kids, and they also want to be taken seriously in their careers. And I don't think